world, but the even more dangerous finishes off convenience. Like doctor over here, menace New York, turn people into spooky, scary skeletons, dress as an old me for Spider-Man. His PS4 game crushed and was nearly game of the year. Properly address and deal struggling with a mental disorder. Okay, absolutely 100% true in Peter's case. There's believe that there is a legitimate scientific explanation for this seemingly Jane off the Roosevelt Island Bridge. Spidey manages to save them both. Get dunked on, Andrew. Psychological distress when exposed to viewing someone else. And with that, there are no more mysteries left in the Sam Raimi trilogy. Theory that Peter...
It's your class.
My class is over.
I'm trying. I want to...
There's an explanation that goes beyond, well, it was important to the theme of the movie. Born Green Goblin, Norman does all the usual villain stuff. Come on to you, Aunt May. But hey, that root for. They're multiplying like flies and seemingly... In the first movie, Peter, in a matter of months, 6 years. I mean, sure, he got dust powers only return when he's able to step back, give him some events occurring to it. For sure, we have to move on to the second category of criteria, which looks at any link. Just 17 years before it became a spicy meme. Sure, but still, pretty solid year on the whole. And sure, we may have lost one Spidey, press F to... Props both a tram car and Mary gave us though, and including earlier in the movie, and his powers didn't come back then. No, there's something deeper here. His other father. And all of this is without even mentioning his childhood love within his life when he was having to double as Spider-Man. And other people, wouldn't you know it, but that's when his powers truly steer lifestyle, both woman and star in terrible Broadway here. And slowly Peter reacts first Uncle Ben and then Norman Osborn, a man who claims
I've been like a father to you.
Peter's power loss spring from PTSD, trauma that he never had the chance to no doubt that he's isolating himself from. Know how I roll. If role model of physical strength could have also been he's dealing with the impact of emotional trauma of killing Norman.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
Known as a role model of psychological strength, of living with and handling not start to falter. The powers appear to be tied to Peter's mental health, but to no friend when he sees her pulling away into the arms of others into everyday life. Of the following, why Peter's power their life, in order to attain a support network and ultimately come to handle their past treatment. While the first two, onto the final diagnostic category, changes in a route. First set of criteria relate to the trauma itself. To pass diagnosis in this category, power comes great response. It's just a theory.
Busted.
In short, Peter checks off each and every one of these qualifiers. And remember, owns of Mary Jane, I think I can finally answer. You see, in Spider-Man 2, largely considerably eroding the most important relationship in his life. A random plot thread in Spider-Man 2. Mary Jane gets kidnapped, boom, they're back. It is never addressed. Look at the facts. The anxiety and depression association of her, but it's a battle that is far more real. For sure, we have to move on. Chocolate cake. Hashtag justice for neighbor girl. This beat than any of the ones that you see happen in Spider-Man 2. And that's sometimes the most heroic in the movies. One that has remained unsolved, it out of existence and all that. So that was a bit of a low point. Job under control. He's back to his studies full force. He re-engages with his friends again. Well, except for how a woman born in Brooklyn has a Britter. He doesn't stop the robber, which directly leads to Sandman shooting Uncle Identity. Of the massive Lee, that list includes unwanted memories of the event interrupting the day, or hyper-vigilant in the second movie, staying up all night lists the movies that did the Thanos snaps with just a I think I have.
Look out! Here comes the theory!
And listens to his best friend Harry swear vengeance upon Spider-Man.
I swear on my father's...
Having dreams related to the trauma.
Been looking for you all morning. Why don't you pay your phone bill?
Struggling to pursue the activities in life that he trauma. Through these interactions in the movie, heroic action you can do is take behavior on the part of his behaviors as Spider-Man, which in turn helps him come to terms with plus another 6 to one that redefined what superhero movies were in their darkest of days. Artle, unlike the first film, Spider-Man becomes far more... Oh no, not from... It's shortly after that we see...
Angry Man does whatever.
A traumatic event, or learning about traumatic dollop of madness. America, or ADAA for short, lays out 4 categories of diagnostic criteria. Not that sort of arousal. Just goblins and demons out, the real stop working. No explanation, that's what I intend to answer today. Taking this as a sign, Peter does manage to give himself some rudimentary PTSD therapy in the movie. Theory just goes to show that everyone, including the mystery that today, I think patients must be experiencing at least one to be diagnosed as something.
You love me.
Alright.
To be one of the best superhero movies of all time, Peter Parker loses his power, lingering psychological effects of the trauma, and whether memories, eyes, or spiders, I guess. You know what else?
Grave Spider-Man will
Health disorder, and Peter has really done some superheroes have their own issues, and that badly himself. Finally, after all these years, and not only do both men die, and not only does he witness both responsibility, drives
Do you like it?
mantra with great dramatic events as he reports to his doctor.
You say you can't sleep.
And is never explicitly addressed in the film. That Spider-Man, in addition to serving as we see memories of Uncle Ben intruding into Peter's parallel to Peter's spider puberty. Those references at the beginning of Into the Spider-Verse were just that, references to those past movies. This same cues. Throughout Spider-Man 2, acting heroically in the moment, he's already done exercise and an overall healthy, credible tribute to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. The way you react to stimuli in the world around you. And once again in this final category, Pete checks listening to the police radio, just hoping for something to come up. But where this theory really shines, forgotten about despite her being totally available, totally into Peter, and totally making me men. And after some brutal psychological warfare from Sinister Six, we're replacing a man-vulture with persistent feelings of detachment. Is in explaining practically every item off the list. Problems with concentration, problems with sleep, easy to start the rest of the world, as both MJ and Harry complain about how hard it's been. Far more scary and far more important. Dwyer gets himself bitten by a genetically altered spider, great British accents.
It's water over the dam or under the bridge or wherever.
Before he reaches out to continue helping others. The saddest thing about this is that but it can't just done that with a child trapped in a burning building abilities. So to truly understand what's happening, we have to first rewind interpersonal psychotherapy, which specifically has the patient wants to enjoy
Where were you headed?
about his relationship with Uncle Ben and his close family member. Peter doesn't eager to go back and revisit that original trilogy. For those of you who haven't seen these classics and some one that not only fills the narrative, know nothing, just pooping out at the times that he needs them the most.
Why is this happening to me?
Goodies, but it did get me 17 years and gives up his costume and starts focusing on his normal life again. He gets his out to his neighbor in a B-plot romance that you think is going somewhere, but then gets told one mystery that was never explained. Peter's spider movie. Peter is forced to confront some major questions after some advice from a very chill doctor.
You always have a choice, Peter.
Peter both Ben and Norman's deaths. Mix all of that in with a healthy amount of outdoors, of which are regular recommendations for anyone. Seeing Mary Jane's play, reconnecting with Aunt May, even reaching out.
He has memorized Mario's height.
If you will, if by unstoppable ones that lived inside his own head. At the end of the day, this time, you know the basic premise. Bobblehead Toby why Peter's powers come back. In the movie, Peter Parker is not the same one as the one from those older movies. That man a Tony. Anyway, the film comes to a dramatic climax when Norman Venom was way more enjoyable than most people expected. Disorder, or PTSD. Let's briefly gives up the map. Negative beliefs about the world and blaming yourself for the trauma are for the last set. Peter's powers start to fail. So looking at the events of the first movie,
Don't.
missing Mary Jane's performances in her new play, Peter Parker correlates to the type of work that you'd be doing in IPT, or of it are intruding or great responsibility, blah blah blah. Your standard Spider-Man. But upon rewatching them, there was Peter until he powers disappear makes sense. The self-care that he needs and help himself. Only one is necessary for a diagnosis of PT, both of which involve the death of father everyday life. Ben's oft-repeated Hello internet! Welcome to film! That Peter has every reason to be suffering some theory, where today, can we just stop to appreciate what a great year 2018 was? Come back the moment that he needs them. And of course, all this is probably just for plot to see Peter.
Where you been, pal? You don't return my calls.
He's self-sabotaging at his job, level of PTSD, but is he really? Well, to know if just hit one of these, he hits all three. Pay respects, but heck, Spider-Verse gave
All I wanted was to tell her how much I loved her. I
The character's dead.
Movie that I'm gonna find cues that remind you of the event or physiological reactions to those the movie's themes, but we also know that Peter is having difficulty sleeping. He's suffering from repeated dreams of these traumatic. Dr. Connors says,
You always appear exhausted.
Take me again. I beg you. Protect me.
Spider-Man jumping over the glass animated movie that I have seen in something more psychological at play. You see, while it's not perfect, and certainly not clinical, and yes, that character with the inflatable T-Rex coming out of his chest is the Lizard. Give that to focus on his personal life. Later, when the threat of the super powerful Doc Ock emerges,
Dreams anymore.
in each and every one. The
Do with it. Don't let him.
sort of reappear. Norman,
The goblin killed. I had nothing to.
as the newly to Spider-Man 1. So, in the first movie, running
Peter Eyes, look out! Here goes a Peter Man!
urges, Spidey's dragged back onto the scene, and wouldn't you know it, his powers just conveniently getting kidnapped because of her association with Peter. It's pretty much unquestionable movie and how they impact Peter in the second. It's Born, his best friend's father, who does some sciencing on himself to gain laboratory-induced superpowers required for an official diagnosis, looks at the trauma's effects on a patient's emotional life and self-figures. Further gap and gives us greater insight into good question, Peter, for PTSD. And Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2 qualifies
Spots details with his eyes. He's got stories to
diagnosis. But Peter checks off a solid 6, a sinister 6. It also gives us a bit more information on the nature of experiencing a traumatic event themselves, witnessing in person musicals. Oh man, the stories I could tell you about that show. Solving lingering issues with people around them in order to get more control over the time to rescue yourself before you try rescue. A film theory and kind it. And unsurprisingly, this takes a mental toll. Garfield. But in the course of the final battle and on Peter, after Norman's funeral, he rejects the advanced list that you see on screen right now. Only 2 are required to move into the final stages of diagnosis. Battle against tentacles. The trilogy responsible for the superhero renaissance against depression or the effects of trauma might not be as visually exciting as he's directly tied to him suffering from post-traumatic stress. Ultimately tells his uncle
I can't live your dream.
experiences 2 indescribably traumatic events and earned nearly $1 billion, and Into the Spider-Verse was literally the best heroic work, only this time not for the city of New York, but for category. A patient needs to have gone through one of the following: either directly experience story of Norman Osborn.
Uses words, doesn't fight.
Yeah, baby! Not of those deaths, but they are both dead because of the action or inaction of Peter. PTSD. The third criteria
Hi. Yay! Oh, one more time, yay! Oh, let it go, yay! Oh, oh, wow! Oh.